So today we are going to be talking about my top 10 essential birding items. And these are different things that if you're getting into birding, things that you will want to start looking at kind of collecting and using around the yard to attract our feathered friends to your yard. And so there's a lot of different things here. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to go from 10 to 1, but I want you to stick around till the end, because if this is something that you're just getting into, if you're just getting into birding, then these are things that you actually probably want to start from 1 and go to 10. So as I go through this list, you know, the 10th thing might be the last thing that you get, but my number 1 item is something that you might want to start with. So I'm going to hold you in some suspense as I break down this list and go through my favorite top 10 essential items that I kind of have worked through as I have started doing more birding. And really, it's a lot of fun. It's so easy. Of course, they are a lot of fun to watch and attract into your yard, but they do a lot of great things for you as well. So if you grow plants, if you've got trees and shrubs and different types of perennials and annuals, and if you ever have had insect issues or worm issues or any of those things, birds really help with that. Now, I will start with this misnomer that I think a lot of people hear, which is don't feed the birds in the summer. I always bring this up because I think it's really important to understand that feeding birds is going to be one of our major things to attract them into our yard. But that's all it really does, is attract them. It does give them a little bit of fuel, a little bit of food, but it is not their main food source. So a lot of people say stop feeding the birds in the summer because they have other things to eat. That's true, but they always have other things to eat. They are survivors. They're very tough, and they're amazing to watch. So by feeding the birds, it gives us some enjoyment, it attracts them into your yard, and it will help your yard be better throughout the entire year. So really excited about that. So let me just check and make sure we're good to go here. All right, so I'm going to start with my number 10. So number 10 is plants to attract birds. Of course, we're a garden center, and garden centers, you know, of course, our number 1 thing to sell is plants and to talk about is plants. And plants attract birds in different ways. And so there's a lot of different things that you can do, a lot of different plants that you can plant to attract birds into your yard. Now, you can get specific ones that will feed the birds, and that's a great idea. But in general, and this is really what I want to talk about, is just kind of in general, plants will help attract birds. If you have a yard with just a lawn and you've got no shrubs and no trees, you're not going to have a great success rate with attracting birds into your yard. Whether you've got a feeder with the best food in the block, you know, and all of those great things and all of these things that I'm going to talk to after this, number 10, they're not going to stay in your yard very long because they don't have places to go. One, they need places to hide. They need places to rest. You know, birds are, you know, if you've ever walked up onto a bird feeder, you know all the birds kind of scatter. Well, that's because they're worried about predators. So you need to give them a safe place to go and hide. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a plant like this holly here, or even that serviceberry over there that are going to be a food source, but really a place for them to rest. There's 2 different types of beaks. I'm not going to get super detailed, but basically birds will either eat the seed at the feeder. So when you have a feeder and you've got it full of seed, like let's say sunflower seeds that have to be cracked open, some birds can actually sit there and eat the seed right out of crack the shell with their beak and eat the seed right from there. A lot of birds, though, will take it to another place and sit down and eat it. So if you don't have shrubs or trees or some place for them to go and sit and crack those seeds open, then you're not going to get the enjoyment out of it. So by bringing the birds into your yard, you should definitely we encourage you to have lots of plants and shrubs. So it could be a wide range. I grabbed a couple here. I'll just show you real quick. Nandina is a great one. Nandina produces lots of berries. There's lots of different types. Domestic Nandina is one of my favorites. Gets nice and tall, 5, 6, maybe even 7 feet tall. A lot of people call it bamboo Nandina because it gets kind of these bamboo looking shoots down here at the bottom. But really great plant for birds. A lot of birds will eat the berries, some won't. And that was one thing that I always like to bring up is a lot of people get worried about, you know, poisonous berries or poisonous different things. For your domestic animals, it's super important that you don't plant those plants. And you can always go to the ASPCA website and check out their full list of plants. It's a long list. It's hard to remember them all. So I know if you've got questions about it, it's really difficult for me to kind of remember all of those things. But but birds and other animals, wild animals that are out in nature, know what they can eat and what they can't eat. So if you've planted a plant and you're worried about it being poisonous to the birds or the squirrels, don't worry too much. They know, trust me. They've been around a long time. They've been around longer than we have, so they definitely know what to eat and what not to eat. Another great one that I wanted to show you was this soft caress mahonia, and I bring this one in. One, we don't have a huge assortment of trees and shrubs right now. They are coming in fast and furious. Trust me, we're getting ready for spring. But this is a great one because it's soft and it is a shade plant. And so when I always talk about shrubs, I always like to mix in deciduous shrubs, which drop their leaves, and a lot of those are going to bloom, so a lot of people go crazy over their blooming shrubs, and a lot of them are going to drop their leaves. Think of like hydrangeas or rose of Sharon, butterfly bush, all of these different ones. But put some evergreens in there because the evergreens are going to really help create an environment that the birds can live in. So having some shrubs mixed around the yard is a great option, and these grow really, really well in the shade. And so I grabbed this because it's one of my favorite plants to grow in a little bit of a shady area. It looks great, looks like a fern, and these get about 3 by 3. Awesome, awesome plant. So soft caress mahonia, and mix in those evergreens because it'll give you the most amount of success with having birds in your yard year round. And of course trees. You know, you want to have some trees in the area if you can, if you have the space. Small trees are perfectly fine. Crepe myrtles, Japanese maples. There's lots and lots of options for small trees. You don't have to have a huge, maple that's 50 to 60 feet tall or oak or anything like that. But some trees for them to nest in, or for you to hang a bird house on, or a bird feeder on, which we might get to here on my list. So with that being said, number 9 is not a super exciting item. It's a cleaning brush. Any kind of bird watcher or enthusiast of birding that brings bird into the yards will always tell you to keep your feeders clean. It is one of our major pushing points because we don't want to spread disease. We don't want to have any kind of bad seed or anything like that. So we always want to keep our bird feeders clean. Now, you don't have to clean them every single time you fill it. I typically clean mine once a month. It's kind of an easy reminder to say, okay, before I fill this up the next time, let me go out there and clean it. And you can usually tell almost all your bird feeders are going to, have kind of, or a lot of them are going to have some sort of window where you can see the seeds. It's one for the birds to be able to see. They, of course, can sense it in other ways, but it'll also start to get a little cloudy. And once your bird feeder gets a little bit cloudy, you need a cleaning brush. And so while you don't have to go out and get one right away, it is something that as you're starting to add to your collection and add to your different things that you need, a cleaning brush will come in super, super handy. There's lots and lots of different types of cleaning brushes. Of course, you can see some there on the screen. We've got, your bristle brush, your wire brush, and your sponge brush. And that's what we carry here at McDonald Garden Center, is we have our wire brush. This is a really, really easy one to use. You can do a lot of different types of cleaning with this. Really good for like hopper feeders, but even your tube feeders. Really important for tube feeders to be able to get in there and clean it. Now you can use just a household brush as well, but typically I don't like to use a household brush. That's going to clean my bird feeder, and then I use it on my dishes or something else in my home that I'm going to be using. So I always like to get one exclusively for the job that I'm going to use it for, which is cleaning my bird feeder. So this is a great little wire brush, and you can pick these up anywhere, but we've got a good little collection. And then of course, a little sponge brush is really, really helpful. These are great for cleaning out feeders as well, because you can add some soap and water, and that's typically what I'm going to recommend. When we clean out our bird houses or our bird feeders, then we definitely want to use a little bit of soap and water. We don't have to use any harsh chemicals. We just want to clean it and get it nice and clear looking so that we can put our seed back in it. But this is a great little option, and there's a ton of them out there. So these are some that I just grabbed off of our shelf real quick, but there's a lot of options out there. So I know that wasn't super, super exciting because we're talking about cleaning and we're talking about maintenance, but it's a really, really important one that I always want to stress is to make sure to clean your bird feeders. It's very, very important. All right, so number 8 is going to be talking about a feeder, hummingbird feeders. So hummingbirds are really, really fun to watch. There's a ton of enjoyment. A lot of people want to attract hummingbirds into their yard. One, they're a good pollinator. They don't pollinate a ton of plants in our area, but hummingbirds are just a lot of fun to watch. And hummingbirds, as we all know, move really, really fast. They flap their wings like, I can't remember, it's like 600 times or 60 times a second. So it's a lot of energy that they use to be able to fly. So hummingbirds need some source of energy, and while they'll get it from nectar from other different types of plants, giving them a little source of energy or a little food is a great option. So a hummingbird feeder is a really, really good choice to be able to attract those feathered friends into your yard. And hummingbirds are so fun, they're colorful, they're migratory birds. So here specifically in the Hampton Roads area, they typically come in, it really depends on weather, depends on their migratory pattern, but it could be anywhere from typically mid-April, maybe as late as May, all the way through July, August. So really, really a long time frame that they're kind of in and out of the area. You can also go onto websites and look at their migratory patterns so you can kind of see whereabout they are and you can kind of get ready. So your hummingbird feeders, don't go put one out now. You're not going to need it until we start to warm up a little bit, and depends on where you live across the country. Hummingbird feeders are one of my favorites. I've got a couple here that I want to show you. We've got a huge selection of hummingbird feeders. It's really, really popular on the East Coast here, especially in the Hampton Roads area. This is one of my #1 favorites. It looks kind of hokey, but it is awesome. So this is called the Hum Yum. The Hum Yum has two different types of ways of feeding it. Now there's just regularly the Humbug, which the Humbug, so one source of food for hummingbirds are bugs. One of the best is fungus gnat, or not fungus gnats, but fruit flies. Sorry. So fruit flies are a great source of energy for the hummingbirds. And so what you do with this is you actually slice up a banana. You put it in there, you can put it in peel and all, and just slice it up. If you've got old bananas, it's a great way to use up your old bananas. And you put it in there and the fruit flies will get attracted to it. And then of course they'll breed. And what they do is they come out of these little ports here and they fly around this feeder. And then you'll see hummingbirds coming in and picking them off all over the place. It is a lot of fun. The Hum Yum, which I love, has two different ways of feeding. You can do nectar and you can do the banana method. So you got a lot of options here, and you can see 10, 15 hummingbirds flying around this thing, picking them off. So hummingbirds, a lot of fun to watch. This is one of my #1 favorites for hummingbird feeders is the Hum Yum or the Humbug. Really, really cool feeder. Really exciting to watch all of them kind of get around it. Now we've got, of course, some new products showing up. I wanted to show you this. We've got lots and lots of decorative ones as well. Decorative but functional. We always want to make sure that they're going to do their job. And so this is just a basic hummingbird feeder. You've always got your ports here. They say hummingbirds are attracted more to red, but they're really attracted to a lot of different colors. Purples, reds, oranges, and pinks. So you're going to see lots of the flowers, these little plastic flowers, which give them the area to go in and put their long tongue down in and drink the nectar. But they're easy to fill. So this one you can just fill just like that. And you just pop and screw this back on, and then you're ready to go hang it again. So really, really good one. And then, of course, just your basic hummingbird feeder. I love these jar ones. There's lots and lots of different styles with lots of different types of jars. You can get plastic hummingbird feeders. There's a ton of different types. I grabbed this one because it's really pretty. I love this kind of really artesian kind of looking glass. It's got this kind of awesome, like almost fern leaf pattern in it. So you can get some really decorative ones. You can get some really simple ones. My trick for hummingbird feeders is location, location, location. If it doesn't work, move it. Try it in a different spot. They want it to be usually in a fairly good sunny spot. It doesn't have to be all day sun, but some sun throughout the day. But also in an area that's somewhat protected. Hummingbirds are small, so you definitely want to give them an area that they feel comfortable coming to. So that's a tricky one, a protected area, but also a sunny area, which is typically more of an open area. So I kind of go back to my #10, plants. Plants always help. So having a yard, a backyard that's got plants around it, so they feel like they can come in and they can dip out if they need to and go and hide if they need to, but something that they feel comfortable in. And that's the most important thing with hummingbirds is if it doesn't work, move it. And that'll be, I'll say it probably a couple times more as we talk about birding, is the best way is if you don't have the right location, just move it and try it again. It's the same thing we do here in the store. If it doesn't sell, we move it. So constantly moving your hummingbird feeders until you find the right spot. Once you find the right spot, you're golden and you're good to go. Now, of course, with hummingbird feeders, we're going to need hummingbird nectar. So that's my #7 item is hummingbird nectar. So there's lots and lots of different ways to do this. Of course, there's the sugar and water, and you just boil sugar and water, and that works well too. But I like to get a nectar that is free of dyes and also has a little bit of extra in it if I can get it. And that's why we sell this one right here. This is the Sweet Seed Hummingbird Nectar. It comes in lots of different shapes and sizes and bottles. I love the wine bottles for like the gift idea. You can pair that with a feeder. It's a great gift. But also these bags, which are really, really nice. They actually produce just as much as the bottles do. There's a concentrate and a ready to use. And what I love about them is the fact that they've got this, easy to pour spout. So you can just put your feeder right underneath it and you just push the button and the nectar comes out. And then in this one, so this is the concentrate. So this is going to be the one where you just put a little bit in and then you fill the rest of it with water, shake it up really good, and you're ready to roll. You can do it in a separate container. You can do it right in the feeder, however you want to do it, whatever works best for you. But what I love about their nectar, and I'll bring up the other one, so this is our ready to use, is these are wildflower infused. And what that means is they're using different nectars from different wildflowers. So it's not just sugar water. There's free of dyes, there's no dyes. And what I thought was really cool, let's see if I can, so I don't want to say it wrong. Let me see if I can find it where it says it, but I think it's got fortified with calcium and electrolytes. So not only is it kind of like a complete diet for your hummingbirds, it's just an amazing mix, and you're kind of safe to use something like this. So the concentrates I love because it makes a whole lot more, but you can get ready to use if you just want something easy and ready to go. That is really almost exclusively the only hummingbird nectar we sell. It's a great company. It's made by Sweet Seed. Really, really good company, and they have a lot of different things that they offer, and these are some of the best, I think. So Ellen said, will red food color harm the hummingbird? I don't think red food color does necessarily, but there's some people that put the dyes in there. Basically what I'll say, Ellen, is it doesn't need to be in there. So what I would always do is, and I'm pretty sure most companies have caught on now, so if you're buying a pre-made nectar, they almost all don't have dyes in them now. But if you're making your own at home, Ellen, then I would not add red dye. There's just no need for it. I know that the color might help attract, but they have other sensory modes that will help them find that nectar. And of course, your hummingbird feeder has probably got some sort of color in it as well that will help attract them. So don't feel like you need to add the color. It's kind of one of those misnomers again, that you don't have to have it be red. So I wouldn't add it. I don't think red food color will harm them, but other dyes can. So Deborah said, if I invest in a bird feeder, will that deter them away from my fruit trees? I need help. So Deborah, yes, it will help a little bit. Bird feeders will, but it will also attract more into your yard. So it's kind of what I always go back to when people are trying to, get rid of Japanese beetles. They always want to use those traps. Well, Japanese beetle traps have a lure in them, and so it's going to lure them into the yard, which means you've got more. And that's the same thing you're going to have with the bird feeder, is you're going to attract more birds, which means you got more chances of them eating your fruit tree. Now, we can do other things, Deborah, to help you with your fruit tree. We can net it. We can use different types of deterrents. There's lots of great options there. So you're going to want to check us out and come in and talk to us. We've got a lot of deterrents like, the owls and the predatory things, and then we've got the little spinner things that make noise and also kind of reflect light. So lots and lots of great options. Ellen said, does the water need to be warm for hummingbirds? No, it doesn't. But having it out in the sun will help it warm up a little bit and help it stay nice and loose. And again, we're typically attracting hummingbirds in the summer months, in the warmer times, so you don't have to worry about using warm water. Now, if you're making your own mix, Ellen, and you're heating it, you want to boil your water with the sugar in it, and that's typically how you make your hummingbird mixture. There's lots and lots of recipes out there. You can search a bunch of them. I don't remember off the top of my head because it's been a long time since I made it, but I want to say it's 2 parts to 1 part sugar, so 2 parts water to 1 part sugar, but don't quote me on that. There's lots and lots of easy ways to kind of search for different types of recipes. But what I would say is keep it simple, keep it basic, and if you don't feel comfortable, get something good like this Sweet Seed Hummingbird Nectar, because then you're in a comfort area, no dyes, it's wildflower infused, and it's got calcium and nitrate or electrolytes in it as well. So really, really good option there for you. All right. So we're going to move on to my number 6. Number 6 is a squirrel baffle. So of course, some people love squirrels and want to attract the squirrels and want to feed the squirrels, and that's great. But a lot of times when we invest in a nice quality bird seed, we want to keep the squirrels out of our feeders and away. And also raccoons as well. So squirrel baffles really are one of the best ways. I've seen lots of different tricks. A lot of people use like the slinky on the shepherd hook. That works pretty well. Of course, there's tons of squirrel-proof feeders. We might get into that here in a minute. But squirrel baffles are a great way to kind of keep them away. And there's a couple different examples that I want to show you. So this again is not a super exciting one, but if we're really getting into birding, which, you know, by the time we go from 1 to 6, we're really kind of getting a little bit more excited. And this might be something that you need. And there's a couple that I'm going to show you. So this is a pole baffle. So a pole baffle is going to be really basic. It's basically got a hole cut out in the center, and there's a couple different types of connectors so you can make it different sizes. But basically it's just a curved piece here and a curved piece here, and you just put it right around the pole, and then you link it together, as now I won't be able to do, right? And then there you go, and it just sits on your pole, and the squirrels and raccoons or other things. One, if you're putting it on a pole, you can put it underneath, and that way they can't get around it up to the feeder. But sometimes you might even put it on top if you're not worried about them climbing up the pole. Maybe they can't get up the pole, but they're coming down from a tree above or something like that. So you got two different ways of using this. This is a pole baffle. A lot of people have bird houses and bird feeders on a pole, and that's what these are designed for. However, this is probably my #1 go-to baffle. It's a nice clear baffle. It's plastic. It's going to last a long time. It's really, really easy to use because it's got this hook in it. So this is going to be your top-down baffle. If the squirrels or raccoons are coming down from the top and getting underneath to the feeder, let's say you hang it from a tree, this is going to be your best option. So you got your pole baffles, and then you got your hanging baffles. If you get a hanging baffle, be careful. Make sure it's got a hook. The one that we sell has a double-sided hook. So you basically can put a feeder right underneath it. So let's see, let me grab my hummingbird feeder. And not that I would necessarily put a hummingbird feeder underneath this, but that's how it works. So it's super, super easy. You hang this to your tree or your shepherd hook or whatever you're using, and then you hang your bird feeder from it. So make sure it's got the double-sided hook. Sometimes you might get a baffle that has just the baffle, and maybe it's specific to a type of feeder. So that's important to kind of know is what is my baffle designed for. This is an all-purpose one, and this is a great option. So again, not a super exciting #6, but a very important one if you're trying to protect your seed, because squirrels are really resilient. And if you've ever had a bird feeder, you know that they will not stop until they figure out how to get in there. And this is a great option to kind of deter them. Once it usually happens this way. You put out your feeder, the squirrels are going to try for an hour. If you're effective, they're going to give up, and then the birds come in and enjoy the rest of the day. So we're trying to keep the squirrels out. Some of us might be trying to bring squirrels in. But I like to use a squirrel baffle. It's really, really easy to use. So if you've got one of your favorite feeders, but it's not squirrel resistant, a baffle's a great option. Now, I'm going to take a quick break here in the middle, and I'm going to throw out an honorable mention. So let's see, did I bring them in here? I think I did. So I can show you a couple options. Maybe I didn't. But honorable mention is another flying friend of ours. So bees and butterflies. So while they are not birding, I want to throw it out there just because I always say, remember our birds and our bees. We always say birds and bees. Our bees and our butterflies. They are super pollinators. They're amazing, and they're a lot of fun to watch and bring into your yard. There's lots of different types of things you can do. One of my favorite things is, let's see if I can find it. I might not have brought them in. I thought I did. I'm looking around. Oh, I did bring them in. Good. Okay, so I can show you. So this is a bee house. We've got lots and lots of different styles. This is a really pretty one. It's just a white with a black roof. You can hang it or you can mount it, so it's really easy to do either way. But these are for mason bees. So a lot of people get worried about bees, right? A lot of people are, I don't want to get stung by bees. I don't want to attract bees into my yard. But then you have a vegetable garden or something that you want pollinated, and you're sitting there saying, well, now I want bees. So this is great to use in your yard because mason bees are non-aggressive bees, and they're a lot of fun to attract into your yard, and they're great pollinators. They're really, really, really super pollinating early in the season, which is a great thing because usually later in the season we got lots of other options. We've got butterflies and we've got moths and different things that are pollinating our vegetable plants. But early in the season, this is a great option. Mason bees, non-aggressive, they're solitary bees. You do need a little bit of a water source nearby, so if you're out in an arid, dry area, area, which typically you're not going to find here in the Hampton Roads area, then you probably won't be super successful, but they need mud. So what they're going to do is they're going to lay their eggs in here, they're going to pack mud in there, and then they're going to kind of protect them for a while, and then those eggs will hatch in the next season. And so you can go through and clean these with pipe cleaners if you want to after each season, but it's a great way to attract a very nice bee into, and all bees are nice, let's be honest, but a great way to attract bees into your yard. And these are not carpenter bees. Carpenter bees are the ones that bore holes in your house and stuff like that. We're not attracting those. These are mason bees, which are very, very friendly bees and great for the garden. Also, I mentioned butterflies. Butterfly houses. There's a lot of different types of butterfly houses out there, but I wanted to show this to you because butterfly houses are going to have these vertical slits. And ladybug houses, which I don't think I had any yet, or else I might have grabbed them, because ladybugs are another great bug to bring into the yard. But I'm talking about our flying friends today, so bees and butterflies. Ladybug houses are going to have horizontal slits in it. Butterflies are going to have vertical slits in it. And so these are great because while they're not going to make a nest, they're not going to live there necessarily, but it gives them a place to be protected. And so whenever you're doing a butterfly garden, it's a great option to have a butterfly house. And this is a nice one because it's a butterfly house kit. Kids love butterflies, right? So you can actually make your own butterfly house, you build it, and then you can paint it if you want to. So this is a great little starter kit for all of our kids out there that want to get started into butterfly gardening. This is a great one. And we do a lot with butterflies throughout the entire year. So if you love butterflies, you're going to want to keep checking us out. We do a lot with them, but this is a great way to kind of get started into it. So I wanted to take a chance to kind of talk about my OLIs, my outside looking in, honorable mentions. Has nothing really to do with birding necessarily, except for they're great for the yard and the garden, and they fly, so they're pretty similar, right? We can talk about bats too. We can talk about a lot of different things. So Julie has a question. She said, a little off topic, but something I hope you can cover. I moved here from the desert, so this is a new problem for me with regular bird seed. I am finding my bird seed clumps and then gets stuck in the feeder and eventually gets moldy. I found a product. Well, let's see a little bit more there. I found a product online called Feeder Fresh Bird Seed Preservative, but it's kind of expensive. What else can I do for this? Well, it might be, Julie, it might be the type of seed, to be honest. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, so I'd say stick around, and maybe that'll answer your question. If it doesn't, then we'll come back to you and try and kind of problem solve that. You might bring in a picture of the bird feeder. I doubt it's the bird feeder, but if it's getting clumpy and it's getting moldy, moisture is somehow getting in. Moisture always finds a way in to anything over time. So if it's sitting there for too long, it might be the bird seed because the birds aren't enjoying it as much, or it might be the feeder because it's allowing moisture in. And if it's a finer seed, then it's going to clump up more and it's going to get moldy faster. So we're going to talk about seed maybe here in a little bit. So stick with us and see if those tips and tricks will help answer your question there. All right. So now that we're done with our honorable mention, we'll go to my number 5. Number 5 is a hopper bird feeder. So now we're getting into some serious stuff here. We're getting into a lot of different types of bird feeders and different types of things. Hopper feeders are a great option. Hopper feeders are usually have a larger capacity, so they're going to have a larger holding area for your seed. So if you're somebody that says, hey, I'm going to go fill it, every 2 weeks or every week and not fill it a whole ton, a hopper feeder might be a great option for you. Hopper feeders are a lot of fun. They have a lot of perches, and typically hopper feeders are going to attract larger birds. So when we talk about some of the other feeders, then we might be talking more about smaller birds, songbirds, those different types of things. But if you want to attract more cardinals, maybe blue jays, then a hopper feeder might be the best option for you. And there's lots and lots of different styles of hopper feeders. Of course, I've got a couple. In fact, one of those pictures was one of my favorites. This is a Westphal, made by Westphal. They're all handmade. It's all cedar. It's all Western red cedar. So it's going to last a long, long time. It's not going to rot. It's a very easy one. It's a nice little mini hopper feeder. And I love it just because it's super easy. It's basic. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles, which I actually really like because it's easy to clean. So we can just take these screens out. And basically what a hopper feeder does, is if you can see this, is it's kind of a triangular hopper. So what happens is the seed goes in, it's bigger in the top, it's smaller in the bottom, so it always kind of keeps that seed going downward. It's almost always got a roof on it, so it's easy to fill. I can fill this up, really, really nice and simple, and then I can hang it as well. So I can just hang it from a tree, or I can pole mount it if I want to. Just got to turn it over and put a couple screws in the bottom, and you can pole mount it as well and just take the chain off. But I love hanging these. These are really easy. Usually hopper feeders have a nice extended roof, so you can see that. So it protects the seed down here. This is where the birds will perch and eat the seed. Hopper feeders, one of my #1 favorites. It's #5 today, but a hopper feeder is a great option. And they're only getting better these days. So let me see if I can get this one out. So hopper feeders now, of course, are coming in more of a squirrel resistant. And these are really easy to use too. Now, I wanted to bring this one in because it can show you the capacity. Let's see if it tells me how much pound. 7 pounds of seed you can fit in here. So a way to kind of put your entire bag of bird seed if you wanted to in there. And you won't have to fill it up too often. And this one will prevent the squirrels from getting in there because it's got this little weight measured kind of perch. So birds are very, very light, right? Their bones are hollow. They really don't they don't have a lot of weight to them. And sometimes, even on your hopper feeders, you might not want the big birds like the crows and different types of things that might get in there and try and get to your seed. So raccoons, squirrels, anything like that, it's gonna be too much weight. It's gonna close the door and they won't be able to get to it. Now, squirrels, like I always say, are persistent. They'll keep on trying, but once they figure out they can't get in there, then typically you're okay. A lot of times with these, if you have an issue with squirrels, it's usually that they figure out that you can kind of knock them around a little bit and it might spill some seed out and then they've got a source of food. But typically they're not gonna really kind of be able to devour it. The best way for them to eat the most amount of seed is by getting in there and just being able to sit there and munch all day, and they will. But this is really a great feeder, and they come in lots of different sizes. So you can get big ones. Let me go back to my other screen. You can see some right over here, this blue one and this red one. We carry both of those as well. So you got lots and lots of options for hopper feeders that are squirrel resistant as well. Of course, I'll never say squirrel proof because I don't know that I've ever seen anything squirrel proof, but squirrel resistant for sure. Hopper feeders, my #5, it's a great option for a great bird feeder. Holds lots of seed, attracts a little bit of a larger species of bird, and you got a lot of different options there with a hopper feeder, and I think they look cool. So, #4, water. Bird baths. Let's not forget that birds need water. So as you can see right here, I've got a bird bath. Bird baths are a little bit bigger, so I didn't want to bring too many in, but I wanted to talk about bird baths just in general because bird baths are a really great way to attract more birds into the yard. So typically I'm always going to say you need a feeder, you need seed, and you need a bird bath. Those are kind of my 3 things. Or you need a water source of some type. Birds need water for multiple reasons. Of course, to keep themselves clean. That's why we call them bird baths, because they like to get in there and clean. But as you can see, this little, I don't think that's a blue jay, a little bluebird over there, is drinking the water out of the bird baths. Birds need water to drink. All animals need water to survive, right? All plants, all living things. So birds need water to drink as well. And I have a picture here, let me find out which way, of the fountain. Actually, a lot of fountains are a great option as a /bird feeder, but also a lot of birds will get in there, and it depends on the flow. Now this bird, this fountain, this bird is probably looking at it saying, should I go in or should I not? The fountain is going a little too aggressively. A nice slow trickle, birds will get in there and they'll love it. It also helps kind of keep some of the mosquitoes down. The best thing that you can do for a bird bath is change the water frequently. So don't let it sit for too long. If you get a rain, leave the rainwater in there for a couple days and then dump it out and refresh it, because otherwise it's just a mosquito attractant in the summer, especially here in the Hampton Roads area. But there's lots of great options for bird baths. I love these glass bird baths. We have a huge selection of these. Of course, in our area, we love the blue crab, so we've got this really pretty blue crab. These come with a nice little easy kind of foldable stand. So the thing that I love about these is they're lightweight, they're easy. You just get this little stand and you just open it up. It's got some rubber stoppers on it, and then you can just put your glass bird bath in it. So really, really easy to use, easy to set up, lightweight. Be careful with them, of course, in the wind. If you feel like you've got heavy winds coming, you might kind of put them up if you think about it. I always kind of say, okay, we've got a storm coming. What do I need to kind of pick up in my yard? Make sure my umbrella is down, make sure my bird bath is picked up and brought in. But you can also get bigger bird baths. I didn't bring one in. You can get concrete ones that look like statuary and with decorations. You can also get the ceramic ones. I love the ceramic ones. They last a long time and they're easy to use. They're somewhat lightweight, so you can pick them up, but they also won't get typically knocked over in the wind. Another great little tip here in the winter time frame is if you want to float a little block of wood in there, is not a bad option to keep it from freezing, because the wood will move in the wind and it'll keep the water kind of moving. And then of course, if you're having a fountain, a lot of us would probably shut it down. So adding a bird bath out in your yard during the time that your fountain is down then is a great option to allow the birds to continue to frequent your yard. There is one more option, which is a water feeder. So this is a great little option if you don't have space for a bird bath or a fountain or any type of other type of way of getting water to your birds, to our feathered friends. This is just like a hummingbird feeder basically, or maybe you've got like a pet that has like a constant water supply source like this. But basically you just put the water in here, it pulls up down the bottom, and it gives the birds a little option to be able to get a drink of water if they need to. So this is more of a bird drinking station, whereas the bird bath provides two different things, drinking and cleaning. So the birds want to stay clean, and the bird bath provides that, but it also gives them a source of water. So have some water in your area because it'll attract more birds. Number 3, of course, is bird houses. Bird houses, super, super important. Tricky. I know a lot of us probably have tried bird houses and maybe they never worked out. And there's a lot of different things here that we can talk about. I mean, I could probably almost do a webinar just on bird houses. But the reason that I really love bird houses is even if I don't get a bird in it, I think they look cool. And I love all the different styles. There's so many different choices. So it just kind of adds to my garden feel and my garden look just by having some gorgeous bird houses out there. Whether the birds use them or not, I don't know. A lot of times they don't nest in them all the time. A lot of times I see them kind of poke in and ride out a storm and then come back out and they're gone. A lot of birds, of course, produce their own nests, so you're not going to get a ton of birds in there, but some will nest in there. Especially bluebirds, they're always looking for holes in a tree or a bird house with a hole. But you'll get a lot of other ones like chickadees and different types of wrens and stuff like that that'll pop into a bird house. So it's a great option, and there's a ton of different styles. And of course you can see here, there's a lot of different styles as well, from the gorgeous, luxury kind of, copper roof, verde roof styles to just your rustic styles. So I want to show you a couple here that I grabbed and brought in. Of course, we've got some decorative ones. We've got lots and lots of choices. Our birdhouse selection has really grown over the years. So if you haven't been here in a while, you're definitely going to want to check out all of our birdhouses. There's a ton of options. Now, this is a hanging birdhouse, which I always like to have, because if we don't have a place to mount it, maybe we don't have a fence, we don't have a post, we don't have anything, then it's always a good option to be able to hang a birdhouse. And birdhouses, you typically want to tuck away. So again, this is kind of like my hummingbird recommendation. You want a little bit of sun because you want them to warm up, especially in those winter months, but you don't want it to get too hot in the summer months. So you want to have it a place that, gets some sun, but not all day, and they feel protected. So you got to be careful. This is a wren house, so typically you're going to see wren houses have a smaller hole. So when you see your smaller hole, it's going to be for wrens, chickadees, titmice, those types of different things, those type different birds. Sparrows even sometimes, but a wren house is a great option, and this is just a really pretty one because it says home sweet home. So it can be your bird's home. And then of course, we've got some really nice ones. These are bamboo. So this is kind of our Going Green series. This is a really nice one. This is another wren house. I brought this in because I wanted you to see that you can do a pole mount. So you can get a 4x4 pole and stick it on top if you wanted to. Of course, we've got some bigger ones as well, but you can also just mount it through this hole on a fence or on a post. Really, really easy to use. It does have a cleaning port, so you can always clean out your birdhouses. So you always want to do that at the end of the season. Typically, I say around August, September, somewhere in that time. Go and clean them out, and then you can put them back out. And again, it's location, location, location. If you're not getting birds, move it. Try a different spot. Because obviously where you have it isn't working, so try a different spot. However, if it's the spot that you like, because I have a few bird houses that I have out that don't get frequent at probably all, but I like where they are and I like the way they look, so I leave them there because it's for my own personal enjoyment. I love using bird houses. I've used them in my home to decorate for the holidays, to make a tablescape. I've used them in planters just as a decorative piece, just to add texture. So again, that's kind of some of the fun of this. Is just adding things to your yard. And here is my #1 favorite birdhouse. So these are made by a really cool company in Illinois. And we found these probably about 3 years ago. But they're all handmade, they're all unique, and they're all different because they're all made out of recycled barn wood from their family's farm that they've had for generations. And so some of the old buildings are starting to collapse, and they're using the old barn wood to produce these. They might go in and buy some of these embellishments here and there, but other than that, they're pretty much all recycled barn wood, straight out of Illinois, USA made, and really cool because they're all unique and they're all different. Even though they reproduce some of the styles, and they'll make like, 100 of these, but they're all different, and they all come in different paint colors, and they all have slightly different embellishments, but all the wood is going to be different. And because they're handmade, they're all unique, which I love. This is a bigger one. They've got smaller ones. They've got hanging ones. They've got lots of different selections, and we've got a great collection here. They make a great gift, and they make a great birdhouse. This is a blue birdhouse. You can see the hole's a little bit bigger than our wren house. I'll hold them up so you can kind of see both. You can see the holes there, right? The wren house is going to be a smaller hole. The bluebird house is going to have a little bit of a larger hole. And you might get some other birds in here as well. But this is a great option, and it's got a really handy kind of cleaning port. So you just pop this little rubber cap out of here, and you can clean it out each season, and then you just pop it back in, and you're good to go. And you got this really gorgeous home. Whether the birds frequent or not, it'll bring you enjoyment. I guarantee it. These are awesome, and they'll last a long time. I mean, these were barns that have been in existence for a long time. They're starting to collapse. They're reclaiming the good wood out of there, so you get a nice solid piece, and they're just absolutely stunning. I love them. Come in lots and lots of different styles. So that's my number 3, bird houses. You definitely want to get it. Okay, we're getting close to the top. Number 2, we need bird seed, right? We need something to attract the birds into our yard. And there's a ton of selection of seed. So I hope that this answers your question. Let's see, I just want to get your name right. So Julie, I'm going to talk a lot about the different tips and tricks that you can do to attract more birds to the yard, and bird seed, of course, is one of them. And if you're having issues, then hopefully some of the things that I'll talk about here will help with that. Bird seed comes in many different forms and fashions, lots of different things, some that are specific to birds. Again, I could do a whole webinar on just attracting bluebirds, or just attracting cardinals, or just attracting, chickadees or sparrows or wrens or any of those things. So there's a ton of different types of birds out there, and a ton of different types of bird seed that might be designed for specific. But to keep it simple today, I wanted to talk about the kind of basics in bird seed. So kind of some of the easy kind of, hey, you want to get into birding, or even if you've been doing birding a while, always buy a high quality bird seed. I've learned from my many failures. So we carry 2 different types here. We carry Wild Delight, and we carry Coles. So 2 of probably the top highest end types of bird seed that you're going to find out there in the market. Coles is probably number 1. They are absolutely amazing, have really high quality bird seed, but I love Wild Delight. This is kind of my go-to, really good, well-priced bird seed, and really high quality seed in here. I mean, you can just see, this is one of my favorite ones. This is fruit and berry. I love the fruit mixes. There's fruit and nut, and there's fruit and berry. So those are probably my 2 favorite ones. In fact, I've got a nut and berry. Let me grab that and show it to you. So I can kind of talk about Wild Delight here and talk about high quality bird seed. So these are my 2 go-tos right here. They're really easy. Now here is why I always say go with a high quality bird seed, because a low quality bird seed, so if you go buy, a 50-pound bag for 10, 20 bucks, then you're going to get a lot of filler seed in there, and a lot of the seed that the birds don't want. And it's usually a fine seed. It fills it up. It's a heavy, little tiny seed. So it fills up the bag, doesn't have to be quite as big a bag, it's got a little bit of weight to it, and it brings the price way down, but the birds don't love it. It's typically Milo seed, I think, is typically the one that they don't like that much, so they're going to throw it out. So if you ever put a cheaper bird seed out, here's a couple things that's going to happen. You're not going to attract as many birds, and it's actually not going to last as long, because typically what's going to happen is the birds are going to come in, and they're going to throw half of it on the ground, maybe 2/3 of it on the ground, because they don't want it and they're trying to get to the good stuff. There's a little bit of good stuff in a cheap seed, and they're going to go and find that good stuff, and they're going to throw the rest of it on the ground. And then you might get some different things growing in your yard, one, and you also will attract other animals that will eat that seed. So a high quality bird seed means that almost 100% gets eaten by the birds straight from the bird feeder, because it's a good quality seed. Also, it's going to last a little bit longer. These high quality seeds, you might say, well, I'm not getting the same amount of poundage that I get from, my commodity seed, my easy seed that I always get. But these are actually going to last longer. I typically fill up my feeders, once a week, and they typically last almost all week. Maybe 5 to 6 days. I usually give it a day off. Usually my Monday it's off, and then Tuesday I fill it back up, and by the weekend I've got tons of birds and they're finishing it off. And so it's a great kind of cycle that you can get on once you kind of figure it out. But using a high quality seed gets you there. So nut and berry, fruit and berry, Wild Delight has tons of different ones. They have ones for specific birds. They've got a songbird food that I love. They've got a great cardinal food that is really, really good. And they've got, of course, the safflower, which safflower might be tough to get this year. But they've got thistle, for your finches. They've got tons and tons of different options out there. And we carry almost all of them. Zero waste, the woodpecker food, lots and lots of options of seed. And it's very high quality. You're going to get lots of big pieces in there, and you're going to get lots of action, and it's actually going to last longer. Now, talk about Coles here for a minute, because I think this is probably... I brought 2 different Coles mixes here. I got the Coles Blue Ribbon Blend. So this is the #1 all-around best because it just attracts a wide variety of birds. So you got lots of sunflower in there, you got the kernels, and you got the seeds. You got some corn in there, you got a lot of different things. So this is a really, really good one to attract a wide variety of birds. And it's actually not too terribly expensive. So it's not bad at all. I think this is priced at $9.99 for a 5-pound bag. That's pretty good. For a high quality seed, it's going to attract a lot of birds, and it's going to last a long time. And then, of course, what they're probably famous for is their Blazing Hot blends. They've got lots of different ones. This is the Blazing Hot blend. A lot of people get the Blazing Hot meats. And let's see, did I bring in? I don't know that I brought it in. Let's see. I don't know that I did, but they make the sauce too. So they make this it's a little red bottle. It's called the Blazing Hot sauce that you can mix into your own seed. So if you've got a specific blend that you absolutely love, but the squirrels are getting into it and you really want to add something hot, birds don't have the taste buds to taste spicy stuff, but squirrels do. So squirrels won't like the hot stuff, but the birds will. And so you don't have to worry about it. So that's what they've added to the Blazing Hot blend. It's a really, really nice seed, really, really good one. And so if you've got one of your favorite feeders that the birds are getting it or the squirrels are getting into it, but you want to keep your feeder, try some of the Blazing Hot blends from Coles. Really, really good option there for you. Larry said, should you feed the birds? Doesn't actually teach the birds not to fend for themselves. Larry, so I kind of brought that up earlier. I don't know if you might not have been on with us while I said it, but bird food and bird seed are really just to attract birds into your yard while they eat a lot of other things. It's not their main food source typically. Most of your birds aren't going to just be like, well, I can't live without this bird food. They're going to find lots of other food. And so what we're trying to do is attract them into your yard so that they kind of stay in our yard. For our enjoyment, one, but also because it helps our plants because they'll find lots of other bugs to eat, whether it's, caterpillars that are killing our trees or scale or other types of insects, aphids. There's lots and lots of bad insects out there that birds eat a lot of, just kind of like our ladybugs. They're great predatory insects. Birds are going to eat a lot of insects as well. And that's really going to be their main food source is birds and grubs and caterpillars and different things that are harming our plants. And bird seed is more of a snack and an attracting. Get them in our yard, get them to stay a little while so that we can watch them, but also so that they can eat some of our bad insects, which is their main food source. So that is kind of my take on that kind of always kind of that question of should I even be feeding the birds? All right, so #1 is a tube feeder. So I always say if you're going to buy 2 things, get a tube feeder and get some bird seed. Tube feeders are my #1 go-to feeder. I love hopper feeders. I talked about those just a minute ago, but tube feeders are absolutely amazing. One, because they're easy to fill, they're fast, they're effective, and they attract a ton of birds. The hopper feeder, as you probably saw earlier, only has really 2 perches typically, maybe even 1. And so you're not going to have a lot of room for a lot of birds. But tube feeders can get huge, we can get big ones, and you can have a ton of action around them. And I think tube feeders are one of the best for being squirrel resistant. Again, I'll probably never say squirrel proof, but I'll say squirrel resistant. I'm going to show you one that might be squirrel proof. I've been testing it for a couple years now. I absolutely love it. But tube feeders are one of my favorites. You get a lot of smaller birds, and a lot of these smaller birds, like the finches you see here in this picture, That goldfinch up there is a European goldfinch. I just like the picture. You're typically not going to see those in our area, but these goldfinches you do see in our area. And then of course you've got like sparrows and wrens and chickadees and titmice and all of these different little fun birds that I absolutely love. And they're so fun to watch because they are in and out. Some will stay there. You'll get cardinals. You'll get tons of woodpeckers on tube feeders. So they are a ton of fun to watch. And they're just always seem to be active and have lots of activity around them. And they're easy, and they keep the seed really pretty fresh and clean. So kind of to go back to that question earlier, my seeds got issues because moisture must be getting in there, or for some reason, if it's a hopper feeder, it could be that. It could be, the tube feeder has a leak, but tube feeders are one of the best for protecting seed. So I want to show you just kind of a basic one. I grabbed this finch one just because a lot of people want to attract finches. They're a lot of fun. You've got your yellow finches, your purple finches, your red finches, your house finches, all of the different ones. But finch feeders are slightly different than a regular tube feeder. So I wanted to bring this one in because a tube feeder in general is going to have lots of perches, ports, different things like that to attract a wide variety of birds and more bird activity around it. You can get short ones, you can get tall ones, you can get huge ones, you can get wide ones. You can get some that have the cage around it, right? Like that one that's right here next to me. You can get those that have a cage that protect it from the squirrels. But tube feeders come in a lot of different shapes. Now I wanted to bring this one in because this is for finches specifically, because finches will actually hang upside down a lot of times. Even if you've got a cage or any kind of outer coating like a mesh net or something, then the finches love to clean on that. But they'll also go on a perch and they will hang upside down. So on this one, you'll actually see, I don't know if you can quite see it, see that little notch right there? That's the feeding port. So this is for thistle only, for smaller finch food. You can actually get finch foods. There's a special finch food from Wild Delight that is not just thistle. It's got thistle in there, but it's got other things that are crushed up small so that they can get them out of these tiny little ports. But what's fun about this feeder is they'll actually hang upside down because you'll see the feeding port, see if you can see it again, is right underneath this perch, which means a lot of other birds won't get to it, which sometimes is what people are after. I want to attract just finches. So you want to get just a finch feeder. So really, really good option. Just like I didn't mention, bluebirds love insects. And I didn't bring this bag out. I had it sitting right here. But bluebirds love insects and mealworms and different types of things. So if you're trying to attack them into your yard, this is a great option as well that really kind of focuses specifically on a couple different types of birds. So I brought that in, meant to mention it, forgot it. But what I really want to talk about when it comes to tube feeders is my number one go-to all-time feeder is the Squirrel Buster. So this is the Squirrel Buster. This is the one that I've been using in my yard for about 2 years now. I absolutely love it. I've seen a lot of knockoffs on this. Typically what they're going to have is a little bit of more of plastic mixed into it. This does have some plastic pieces and components to it, but typically it's almost all metal. So I actually tried the knockoff first because I was trying to not spend as much. I will tell you, these are a little expensive, but they are absolutely amazing. It's worth the money. Trust me, I swear by it now. If you're trying to do birding for the next 2 to 5 to 10 years, get a high quality feeder like this one because it's gonna last you and you're gonna be happier that you did. Because on my other one, it had plastic perches and the squirrels ate right through the plastic perches. Basically, they said, if I can't get to the seed, nobody's getting to the seed. So get a high quality one. I'm actually gonna take this one out and see if I can build it here real quick so you can see it. This is their larger one. They've got a lot of different styles. I carry about 3 of them. So let's see if I can do this without making a huge mess. There we go. It does have a little bit of tags here that I'll try not to rip apart too much. And then I can show you really how this thing works. This is absolutely an amazing feeder. You will love this feeder. Okay, so here it is. It holds, let me just make sure I say this right. I want to say it's 5 pounds. Nope, so 2.4 pounds. They do have a bigger one that holds more. But this is absolutely amazing. It looks good. I think it looks great. I love that hunter green. It is awesome. Jody just said I have one of those for about 10 years. Thank you, Jody. This is the best feeder out there. It is awesome. Holds lots of seed. Only birds can get to it. You will never have an issue with squirrels. I don't want to say a squirrel, 100% squirrel effective, but squirrel resistant to the 100th degree. So it is an amazing, they claim it's squirrel proof. I will never say squirrel proof until I 100% see it. Jody has had it for 10 years, so she might be able to tell us if it's really truly squirrel proof. I've given them about 2 years. They haven't really cracked the code yet, but it's a great one. So one, it's a hanging feeder, so you're gonna want a shepherd's hook. You're gonna want a small tree. I use it on a small tree. It's really, really great. It's not super, super heavy. It's got a really easy opening. So you just basically, I don't know if you saw what I did there, you push it down and then you turn it and then you just open it up. So you can fill in your port right here. It's got a piece of cardboard in there right now, but basically you can fill it up pretty easily. It's not too bad. And then you can just pop that right back on. Super easy. You don't even really have to like tip it over or do anything. It's got a little rubber stopper here you pull down to keep it. And then where the smart idea comes around it is you might be noticing that this is where the birds feed, right? And you've got this wire mesh on the outside, which birds can cling on to if they want to. You can actually, if you wanted to, you can actually take these little perches off if you're just trying to get certain ones. I leave them on because I don't want to mess with it. But they are awesome. So Anita said, I loved mine, but they aren't bear resistant. Well, I don't know a lot of things that are bear resistant, so you got a different issue there for sure. In fact, I think Brendan here always tells me a story about he had bears too, and he's got the Droll Yankee, the big like dipper and flipper and whipper. He's got those, and he said they actually held up pretty well. But this is a really, really good one. So back to my favorite squirrel buster. His favorite is the Droll Yankee flipper and whipper and tipper. But this is my favorite, the squirrel buster. So it's got this protective cage around the outside. One, the birds can cling to it, but also when a animal like a raccoon, a possum, a squirrel, any of those big animals that I've had all of, when they get on it, it comes down. And so this mesh that's a little bit tighter, you can see right there, it's a little bit tighter, and what happens is that mesh closes down around it and they can't get to it. And literally it works perfectly all the time. It's really actually very easy to clean too. It takes a minute to kind of get, to figure out how to do it. But basically, there's a screw on the bottom. You unscrew that. This tube in the center comes out, and then you can take the plastic port out, and you're good to go. So really, really awesome feeder. This is the Squirrel Buster Classic. Like I mentioned, they've got a lot of different styles. This is the Legacy, so the Squirrel Buster Legacy, which is more of just a mesh with 4 ports around the bottom. So another great option is the Squirrel Buster Legacy. And then the little Squirrel Buster Standard. So you kind of got a large, a medium, and a small. They're different names. The Legacy is the middle size, the Classic is the biggest, and the Standard is one of the smaller ones. So really, really good option. It looks just like the Legacy. It's just a smaller form of it, but still holds a fair amount of seed. I think it's 1.3 pounds. So it's still got a pretty nice shape to it. Really, really one of my best is the Squirrel Buster. Absolutely favorite. So let's see. Sally said, I also have the one you were showing. It's fantastic. Expensive, but worth it. Yes. But I mentioned it really is worth it. I mean, sometimes when you've gone through 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 tube feeders, you could have paid for 4 or 5 of these. So you can always get good deals here at McDonald Garden Center. We've got a lot of them. I will tell you the price on these are $79.99. Not quite as expensive as the Droll Yankee like tipper, whipper, and flippers. And also those hold a lot of seed. So I kind of weighed my options because I thought about the Droll Yankee. I think they hold like 5 or 6 pounds. And so they're big tubes, they're big feeders, which is great. But also, I was sitting there saying, I don't really know that I want that big of a feeder. I want kind of a nice, small, basic feeder, and I'm willing to pay the price if it's going to last me, and these last. They are absolutely amazing. So if you are getting into the game, get yourself a tube feeder and some bird seed, and if you're ready to do it for real, get a Squirrel Buster and some good bird seed, and you will be happy about the results. It really does pay off. It is absolutely amazing. So there are my top 10. I'll roll through them real quick, and I'm going to go back in the reverse order so that you know if you're getting into it. You want to get the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the good ones to kind of focus in on. If you've been in the birding game for a little bit longer, then maybe you haven't done some of these other ones. But these are kind of basics. These are like my go-to essentials, hence the name of this webinar. My top 10 essentials. So number 1 is a tube feeder. Squirrel Buster is my favorite. Number 2 is a high quality bird seed. You got to have bird seed to attract the birds. Number 3 is bird houses. Try and get them to stay in the yard. Not only do they look pretty in your yard, which I like, but also if you get a couple of birds, families to stay, then it's even more fun to watch. So birdhouses. Number 4, bird baths. You got to have water. You got to have a source of water. It really helps the birds. It keeps them healthy, keeps them clean, and gives them a drink of water when they need to relax. And it's a lot of fun to watch them playing in the bird bath. So bird baths are great, but you can get smaller forms of like a water feeder or even as grand as a water fountain. So lots of different options there for water. Number 5 is a hopper feeder. Hopper feeders are great because they're going to allow you to hold more seed, and it's just a different shape and size and allows you to maybe start watching some of those bigger birds come around your feeders. Number 6 is a squirrel baffle. We're trying to get rid of the squirrels, right? We don't want the squirrels around. So you put a squirrel baffle over top or underneath your pole, on your pole, typically underneath, to keep them from coming up. Hanging from a tree, you put the squirrel baffle on top. A couple good options there for you there. Hummingbirds are a lot of fun to watch. They're great little pollinators. They're super energetic. Flap their wings a ton, and so they need some energy, so get them some hummingbird nectar, and then of course you'll need a hummingbird feeder to go with your nectar, so that's my number 8. Number 9 is a cleaning brush. Keep your feeders clean. It's super important to keep them clean. I didn't mention that about the hummingbird feeders. Hummingbird nectar can go bad, so if it's not being used in about a week's time, you need to get rid of it and refresh it. So that's why I always say location, location, location. Find a good location where it's getting used up so you don't have to worry about dumping out some nectar. But you don't want that nectar to sit there. Clean it out, soap and water, fill it back up, put it back out. Same with your bird feeders. I usually do mine about once a month. Depends on the area you're in, depends on the weather really. Once the outer screen starts to look a little cloudy or it starts to just look a little dingy, great time to feed it. You don't let it get so bad that you got issues down the road. And keep our birds healthy, of course. And then, of course, number 10, we're a garden center. Have some plants in your yard. Not these plants. These are house plants. These are tropicals. You can take them outside during the summer months, but shrubs and trees in your yard. You got to have a place for them to maybe have a home in, but also maybe to feed them, but also really to protect them and make them feel like it's a welcoming environment that they can come into and enjoy your home and stay for a long time. And if you give them plants, then they will help you by keeping the bugs off of them. So it's a great kind of circle of life kind of deal there. Really great thing to do. So hopefully this helped. Let's see, I'm just gonna breeze through these questions. I think I got pretty much everybody as they came in. So I didn't see this one. Karen said, I have a feeder that the squirrels learned to unlatch it so they could just climb in and eat to their heart's content. Yep, so that's where I kind of go back to always want to get, a good quality, and if you're looking for squirrel proof, get a real deal squirrel proof like the Squirrel Buster or the Droll Yankee tippers, whippers, and flippers. There's lots of good options out there, and there's a ton of different really squirrel proof feeders that you can try. I have the caged ones. I've got some less expensive versions of the Squirrel Buster. I've got lots and lots of different things. Of course, the hopper feeder that I showed you that has the door that closes, that's a great option too. So let's see, Jody said, more frustrated about the grackles and the, oh, sorry, it disappeared there on me. And the blackbirds than squirrels, yeah, they are frustrating. So sometimes the Squirrel Buster might not close down on them. You might try one of the hopper feeders. Those typically work pretty well on bigger birds sometimes. They get too big. So like your crows and your grackles and your blackbirds and things like that. Those typically will close that latch down. But they are tough and they will devour some seed, won't they? They're pretty bad, but they typically don't last too long. I feel like they flock in, they eat a bunch, and then they get out. And it gives you the opportunity to enjoy the rest of the day with other birds. But they are a nuisance, aren't they? Unfortunately, they're part of the larger species that we're trying to attract. So let's see. I have let's see. I think that might be all of it. I did see the question from Pam, is there a way to discourage cowbirds? Not that I know of, unfortunately. And so it kind of falls into that same category as the blackbirds and the grackles and the crows. They're just a little bit of a nuisance birds. I know a lot of people don't like mockingbirds or what we used to call them back in the day, catbirds, because they're very territorial and aggressive to other birds and other animals. I mean, that's why we call them catbirds, right? Because they swoop at cats. Unfortunately, they're birds. They're in our area. I've got I'm in a fortunate spot that I actually have eagles in my area, which is a lot of fun to watch. bald eagles and some different types of hawks and things like that. So birds are just a lot of fun. We're trying to attract some of the smaller birds. Try different things, location, try a different, maybe a little bit more of a hidden spot to keep some of those bigger birds away. They typically like to be in more open spaces, not super open, but they typically won't like to get into a smaller space. So if you got like a smaller tree, you might try that, try hanging it. So always try new things, and as a community, we can always kind of let everybody know what we've learned, and hopefully find out the best way to attract the most amount of birds that are enjoying. And yes, there's always frustrations. Hence, gardening, birding, they're very symbiotic. They kind of live together. That's why we love our birds, and that's why we love our plants. You're going to have, times where you fail, and that's okay. You're going to learn from them. I've learned a lot of things. I've probably learned more from my failures than I have from my successes. Especially when it comes to gardening or birding. I mean, great example is the squirrel buster. I bought the cheap one. I wish I hadn't. Now I've got the more expensive one, and I love it. So, you're going to have some trials and errors. I'm here to help you maybe lessen some of those errors and those failures and have more successes. So hopefully today helped. I hope you all enjoyed this. Enjoy the warm weather. We've got a couple days of really gorgeous weather here. So get out there, get in the garden, come in and see us here at McDonald Garden Center. Pick out some great birding items. We've got new products arriving daily, so you definitely want to check out our new birding area with lots and lots of new products. So we hope to see you soon. I hope you all enjoyed this, and I'll see you around the store if you come in and see us, and I'll see you next week.